In 2013, Suncor and its joint venture partners, Total E&P Canada Limited and Teck Resources Limited, set out to construct one of the best mining opportunities in the industry.
Fort Hills is a world-class, world-scale project. It moves the dial for Canada's economy.
First time I went to Fort Hills, I actually visited the Bitchmount site. And what struck me was the history and the buildings and what people had created years and years ago on the banks of the Athabasca River.
From 1925 to 1958, there was a whole science experiment going on there, figuring out how could we separate this oil from the sand and make something useful for society. But people lived there. This was a community.
And long before the Bitchmount test plant, the area was home to local Indigenous families.
My grandparents lived at mile 14, just down the river. We used to have a long house on the bottom and a big house up on top.
That's where basically we all grew up. We trapped the whole area from the Athabasca right in through where the whole site is of Fort Hills. There was no roads in there, so basically we all traveled by donkey.
But the Bitchmount site is where it's all started. It's where we perfected the separation and where the first real commercial scale operation existed. So when you look at the startup of the Fort Hills operation with its 50-year future ahead, you actually have to go back and look 50, 60, 70 years back to see the starting point. And it truly is interesting that a new community has formed where things originated.
It's hard to imagine that the Fort Hills project was approved as a project in 2002. This is a project that will literally generate economic benefits across this country for decades to come.
Fort Hills is a $17 billion plant. It's like a monster. It's its own little city. And the amount of work that went in to imagine this thing, engineer it, build it, and then see it to actually make oil, it's amazing.
It's not very often you get to work on something that's like a game-changer project. This is going to be our history. This will be our legacy.
Started in 2013, the construction project spans 6 years. But getting the workforce together wasn't an easy task.
I'd say incredibly exciting and incredibly daunting, both at the same time, because we were trying to staff not only for the construction and the project itself, but also for the long-term operations. None of us coming in really knew how big it was going to be. We knew we were going to need about 1,600 employees, and at any given time, during construction, you have about 8,000 people on site.
The beginning was hard. With so many people involved, but over time, we gained trust.
Between engineering, operations, commissioning, maintenance, reliability, all that work together to figure out, okay, how are we going to make this work? It's been lots of fun, but lots of work at the same time.
Yeah, there were definitely times I felt like this was going to be too overwhelming and too big.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We'll get started here.
My biggest learning in all this is you're not alone.
I think the culture at Fort Hills is, if I had to wrap it up in one word that really emphasizes what it has become, it's collaborative.
I thought what was the biggest challenge was actually our biggest opportunity, and that was the culture that got created early on at Fort Hills, which was around setting stretch targets and achieving them.
One that was really crucial for us was our hydro testing program. We had such a tight deadline, and it was crucial for us to make that date that we had planned for. So we all hands on deck, everybody working together, not only the contractors, but our engineering team, our construction team, our quality team. Everybody was focused on delivering what we had to deliver, and it worked.
I've been to many projects where there were challenges, but the challenges were just challenges and no one really took ownership of it. What I saw here were people were dedicated to trying to resolve them, and it was through great collaboration, team dynamics, and also really around a culture of empowerment at the floor.
No, we've had just tremendous success on this project as I look back, and one of the big things that led to our success was a decision to start up our front-end assets in the fall of 2017, and we called it First Froth.
Seeing kind of this big plant come to life and all the machines turn on and seeing the first froth come out and the first material we've made, getting that strategy put together of how we're going to run has been a great achievement for us.
With primary extraction up and running, the next deadline was to produce first oil.
We've been working at it for a couple weeks with, a little setback here, a little thing there, and it was miserably cold up there.
If you look at the secondary extraction block itself, it's all high work, so there's nobody on the ground. You're up exposed, no matter where you're at on those decks. It's brutal cold.
I was on the ground a number of times, and it was for an hour, and I saw teams in the field full-time through that period, and I just couldn't imagine how they were doing it.
I didn't hear anybody complaining about the weather. One, because we can't do anything about it, and two, because we were so focused on achieving what everybody wanted that we were just going day by day.
I remember getting a text message saying, "We've hit first oil," and I remember jumping up and down and screaming, being so excited for the folks at site, for all the folks who've been a part of this over the last number of years.
As I was on the phone, I was listening to people starting to have difficulty speaking, and I felt the emotions come over me. I had more than one tear as well, and I don't know if it was tears of thankfulness or pride or all of those things.
It was not as much about, say, climbing Mount Everest. It was more about just getting there safely.
We've proven to ourselves, we've proven to the company, we've proven to the marketplace that we can do it.
Having been part of the integrated team and recognizing how many challenges we had, and then getting to the day and recognizing that we managed to achieve it, was absolutely spectacular for me.
First oil wasn't the end, it was the starting point. And success really means a safe, reliable operation operating at full capacity, which we've also achieved, the third success state, that we could operate 90% of our nameplate capacity for 7 consecutive days, which means we're reliable and we're here for the long run.
Fort Hills has taken a great deal of teamwork from our employees, from our contractors. When I look at it from the initial design, through the construction, through the startup, right the way through to operation now, they've set the standard for Suncor, they've set the standard for the industry. Those teams have performed incredibly well.
Wood Buffalo is our home. We are committed to reducing our carbon footprint. For the first time, Suncor will be using a new innovative technology, which has been implemented at Fort Hills.
That enables us to produce a product whose quality is equal to the average crude on the American continent. So a great step forward in terms of lower carbon intensity of the bitumen we're producing. One of the keys to success for Fort Hills has been the willingness to innovate in terms of the design, to innovate in terms of the construction techniques, to innovate in terms of the product quality, and to innovate in the way we work with our Aboriginal neighbours. All of those have been a great success.
One of the pieces of my job that I love the most is the actual being connected to the reclamation.
Known at Lost Lake is another example of our environmental commitment towards sustainable development.
It's a really beautiful lake that we've built at the north end of the project. It's there to compensate for the watershed that we did disturb. It's quite amazing. See moose, bear, fox, anything you want to see in that area has come back and is using the habitat that was created. It makes you feel good about what we can do.
This project is going to impact the people who live in the area and have lived there for hundreds of years. And so it's not always easy when sometimes it can be at a crossroads that the land is going to be developed for resource development. So we have to work really hard with the communities. We have to build trust. We have to make sure that the work that we're doing is meaningful for them and that they're included and that they understand what we're doing and that they can influence the project itself.
An example of this is our East Tank Farm partnership with First Nations.
This agreement itself and this deal represents a long-term, prudent investment which will benefit our community for the next 25 years.
And so now, for decades, this will generate stable income for them so that they can fund infrastructure and elder care and education and all of the things that so many of us in this country take for granted.
An important part of building the culture at Fort Hills focused on the inclusion of local and Aboriginal businesses.
Fort Hills site is huge for us because this is our first operations. Before Fort Hills, we were construction. We specialize in construction cleaning.
We've been out there since the beginning, and we've grown with it.
We started with a crew of 5 in 2002, and then we got into operations in 2014, so now we clean the permanent buildings as well as the mobile trailers.
Early on, they were handing out flags every month, like if there were no incidents for your company. And so at one point, we had so many flags on our trailer out there that you couldn't put any more flags on the building. To be recognized by Suncor in our efforts, it meant a lot to Ray and I and to the company and our staff.
I think a metric of success will be if the stakeholders and the Aboriginal communities that have been impacted by that project can say that they've been seen, they've been heard, they've been valued, and that they shared in the prosperity of the Fort Hills project.
It's the next step in our oil sands journey in the Wood Buffalo region. It's a hugely significant part of development in the country. And for Suncor, it represents a real long-term future.
My proudest moment has been just being a part of the project and the successes it's had. It's an amazing accomplishment.
I feel proud of any part that I've contributed to the growth out here and my little part that I do. Very proud of it.
To be here for first froth and first oil and all the firsts, right? It's a future for me, for my family. It's a stable income.
No matter how hard things were at times and tough as we go through, when I look back, all I can do is smile, right? There's just pride in the people and pride in what we've all done together.
Success of this project was not an accident. It happened because we had good people, we had good programs, and we committed to what we were going to do.
We can say irrefutably that we've delivered the biggest, best project that's ever been done in the history of the Alberta oil sands.
Success for me 25 years from now at Fort Hills will look like a site that still cares for the environment, a site that people are still proud to come and work at.
This project will have an impact for years to come. It's probably one of the best, most safely executed mega projects in the Canadian oil sands. So we should all feel really proud.